Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I want to start this video by first saying thank you to everyone who has commented on my videos, for you guys who have subscribed, for those of you who have reached out to me on Instagram, thanking me for these videos and asking for my help with their personal statements and their applications. It's been awesome helping you guys put your best self out there for the admissions committee, whether it be in your personal statements or your COVID essay or summary of experience or anything like that. It's been really great, and it's definitely been awesome getting to know you guys and what you guys are all about. You guys are some incredible people, and I'm just honored to even have the opportunity to connect with you guys and get to know you. So thank you for the support with my channel and making these videos and all of that. So with that said, if you're not following me on Instagram yet, I highly recommend it. I use it to not only let the public know what videos I'm working on next, but also I give out health tips, PA tips, things like that. I'm planning to do a giveaway. You guys are the first to know about it. Stay tuned for that. It's gonna come in handy for those of you who are applying this cycle, or even if you're applying in the future. I will make it so that you can use it whenever you do apply. So yeah, give me a follow, give me a shout out, and I'd love to see you guys over on that platform as well. With that said, June is quickly approaching. Actually, June will probably be here by the time I post this video. So June is here, and with that means that those of you who are applying, especially those of you who are applying to rolling admissions programs, you guys are probably hitting that submit button now, or you will be in the upcoming weeks. Once you hit that submit button, almost everything is out of your hands, and that is when the difficult part begins. This is the part where you feel very much out of control. You don't know what's gonna happen. Everything's sort of up in the air. Now the waiting game really begins. So whether you hear back in a few weeks or a few months from the PA programs to which you've applied, it's going to feel like an eternity, and you need to be prepared for that. The truth is that there's not much you can do after you hit the submit button to increase your chances of getting into a PA program. That part is done. You've completed your end, and now it's just waiting for the PA programs to get back to you. But there's a productive way to utilize this time and an unproductive or counterproductive way to utilize this time. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how I utilize this time between when I hit the submit button and when I got my first interview invitation, and how I recommend you guys using this time as well. I'm going to break this video into 3 parts. The first is related to your CASPA application. The second one is going to be related to how to prepare for interviews. And then the third is how to compartmentalize your anxiety, your anticipation, the stress that's related to the waiting game. If you're interested to know what I think, then keep watching. So the first thing that I recommend doing after you hit the submit button is keeping up to date with the progress of your application, because it's not automatically verified and ready to go for the programs. You kind of want to make sure that it's going through all of the subsequent steps in order to reach verification status. With that said, the CASPA application itself is categorized as received once you hit the submit button, and then it's labeled as complete after about 48 hours from CASPA receiving your application. And this is after your transcripts are received and your letters of recommendation are received. You're going to want to make sure that your CASPA application has been categorized as complete and has received these materials. The last step is for your application to be verified by CASPA, and this can take 2 to 4 weeks, generally speaking. You want to make sure that it's been completed and verified as anticipated, and if not, then you want to troubleshoot it ahead of time and get it taken care of as soon as possible. Secondly, many of us, after we hit the submit button, are going to continue to volunteer, going to continue to work and shadow and all of that after we've submitted our applications. You're going to want to keep up to date and keep track of all of the hours that you are accumulating and all of the experiences that you're acquiring during this time as well. The reason for this is because you're not guaranteed an interview, you're not guaranteed an acceptance, and so you want to continue on as if you're working toward applying to PA school. So keep seeking out new experiences. It's not only going to keep you busy, but it's going to keep you looking forward to something, which is important during this time. After I submitted my application, I began training new scribes at my emergency department, and although that wasn't on my CASPA application, that was something I talked about in my interviews. So you're gonna want to keep note, of your new experience and what you're learning from it and how you're growing and all of that, because it can only help you. And it's a great way to utilize this time in a productive way and have something to look forward to as well. So keep that in mind. Lastly, you're gonna want to update the programs on relevant and critically important information. So this is kind of tricky. Think of things that are gonna give your application a significant boost to the programs. An example of this might include completing a prerequisite that wasn't on your transcript, or pursuing a new career. So if you got a new career as a medical assistant and you've accumulated 500 hours or anything like that, that might be something you want to update the schools on. But I don't recommend contacting the schools regarding a dozen hours of volunteer or checking in to see if your application was received and if they're sending out invitations and pestering the schools for updates, because the reality is that they have hundreds, if not thousands of applicants to keep up with, and this is not gonna make you memorable in a good way. So just trust the process, know that they'll be getting back to you, and try to be as patient as possible, but fill your time with things that are gonna help you stand out as an applicant, whether it be for this cycle or for the next one. So those are my tips surrounding CASPA and submitting your application. And so now we're gonna jump a little bit into interview preparation. Okay, so waiting until your interview invitation is probably one of the more difficult parts of the application process. But the best thing to do is to prepare for these interviews, because the truth is, while schools try and give you an advance notice, sometimes schools give you like 2 days notice. You know, I had a friend who found out the night before that an interview spot opened up, and so she had to be ready to go. You're going to want to use the time between submitting your application and your first interview invitation to prepare, because you don't know when you're going to get an interview invitation, so you want to be ready to go. The first thing I want to say about interviewing is that some people are going to be naturally better at interviewing than other people, but it's called an interview skill for a reason. This is something you can improve upon. It's not something that's just hopeless, you know, it's something you can practice and build on. Anyone can improve their interviewing skills. In truth, all it takes is research, self-reflection, and practice. That's it. If you can do those 3 things, you will be fine, trust me. So you're gonna wanna research the interview process and how to take control of your interview and put your best self forward for the admissions committee. And I started by doing research and reading 3 different books on how to interview, specifically for PA school, and then there was one med school book that I read, and so How to Ace the Physician Assistant Interview, and that is by Andrew 𝚘𝚏𝚏. I think I'm saying his last name right. I also read the Physician Assistant Interview Guide by Savannah Perry, and she has a lot of great questions in there, a lot of great ways to self-reflect and to kind of go through the process of figuring out what you are gonna say to these questions and how you're gonna respond. So the last book I read was called The Pre-Med Playbook Guide to Medical School Interviews, and that was by Ryan Gray, and that was a very unique perspective as well. So those 3 books I used in tandem to help prepare me for what to expect in the interview, how to present myself, and sort of help me figure out exactly what I was gonna say. Now, keep in mind, I did not passively read these books. I sat down, I made notes, I used my own personal experience, my own personal perspective to figure out, okay, how exactly am I gonna respond to these questions? How exactly am I gonna utilize my story and my mission and convey it to the admissions committee? So you're gonna wanna be active when it comes to reading these books. Before you even read any of these books, I recommend sitting down and reading over your personal statement for one, and then also writing out exactly what you want the interviewers to know about you before you leave the room. The thing is with interviews is that they go by so quick. The truth is you're probably not gonna remember what the heck you said. There's gonna be a lot that just flies out the window. You don't know, the time goes so quick. And you want to have a clear intention before you even enter the room. So you never go too far from that line, if that makes sense. So I recommend sitting down, figuring out what it is you want them to know about you. I imagine it probably ties into your mission or to your personal statement in some way. Think macroscopically, and then tie your answers back to that. So you're gonna wanna talk about personal experiences or your story or anything that would convey who you are as an individual to your evaluator. And then during the interview, you want to use these personal stories to illustrate your point. That's going to make you more memorable to the evaluator and be more impactful. And I'm going to be doing more videos in the next couple weeks on interviews because it is such an important thing and it's so stressful. And so I'm hoping to help you guys prepare as much as possible. So next week, I'm going to be going deeper into how to prepare for interviews, what to expect on interview day. And then after that, I'm going to be going into depth on certain questions and how to approach certain scenarios. And so if there's any questions that you guys might be struggling to answer or have anxiety about, feel free to message me and let me know, and I'll be sure to incorporate those into the upcoming videos. I personally thought of my application as a way to tell the schools about me, and I used my interviews as a way for me to tell the schools how I fit with them. So the next thing I recommend is looking over the mission statement of the program that you've applied to. Look over their website inside and out if you haven't already, or at least remind yourself of their mission statement. I also recommend talking to the students of the program, both alumni and current students, getting a first-hand perspective of what the school's like and why you applied there, because that is going to be coming up in your interviews. Why did you choose to apply to our program? So you want to have a really solid understanding of their program and exactly not only what you liked about it, but also what you can add to that program as well. And if you're not really sure of what to look for when researching programs, I have a video on what I looked for in the PA schools that I applied to. So those points were things that I brought up during my interview when I was asked why I chose to apply to a certain program. And so you're going to want to have an answer to that question. But I recommend going beyond that and not only thinking about what the program can offer you, but what you can offer the program. So you also want to see how a school conducts their interview, because there are different interview styles and each one of them require sort of a different approach. So you're going to want to get a sense of how the school conducts their interview just to prepare for what to expect on that big day. And like I said, I plan on doing a video next week of my own interview experience, because I think I experienced every interview style out there. And so I can give my tips as to how I approached those different interview styles and what I did and what I thought I could have done better. And you have to keep in mind, not all schools have information out there as to which interview style they go with. One of the schools that I applied to had no information as to how they conducted their interview online, not in the forums, not anywhere. And they wanted it that way for a reason. So you have to be prepared and ready for anything when you go into these interviews. But I'll discuss that more next week. The next thing I recommend doing is writing out a list of questions and then bullet pointing your answers. And you'll want to do this as you make your way through the books that you're reading or different podcasts or videos on interviews that you might be listening to. The thing that I recommend more than anything is not memorizing your answers verbatim, because this is just going to come off so robotic and it's just not going to be organic. It's not going to be believable or likable. You want to show the admissions committee that you're able to think off the cuff and you're able to convey your words and communicate appropriately. So the best way to do this, I found, was to have a question, write out bullet point answers, and then record myself answering these questions, videotape myself answering these questions, practicing formulating my thought into words out loud while in the car, while getting ready for work, while in anywhere. Just anywhere. The more you practice, the better you're gonna get. Because getting accustomed to speaking well and conveying information in an articulate and concise manner is not easy. It's gonna take practice. You might think you know what you're gonna say, but I promise, especially when you're under pressure, it's very difficult. Preparing for this and getting used to how you sound and look is gonna really ease a lot of anxiety when it comes time to sit there in front of your evaluator. So keep that in mind. So my next tip is to research the profession, you guys. Research current events surrounding the PA profession. Research where the PA profession originated from. What's the purpose of it? How has it evolved over time? How is it being used in the current healthcare system? What improvements can be made with the PA profession? Some schools will ask you about PA related news or information, and it did catch people off guard at some of the interviews that I went to. So you're gonna wanna get a handle on it. So AAPA is a great resource and has a lot of information as to what's going on in the PA profession. So if you're applying within a specific state, you can also join your state's organization, and this might be a little bit more relevant to you and your future practice as a PA in that state, and it'll give you a slight edge on interview day if the question is to arise. You can also talk to a PA that you're shadowing if you have that sort of relationship, or any PAs that you might know, and get a first-hand perspective on the profession and see where they think that improvements can be made if they've been practicing for a while. Utilize the resources at hand and do your best to have a baseline knowledge about the profession that you're going into. Lastly, regarding interviews, you're gonna wanna prepare financially, because like I mentioned, you could find out about an interview opening up the weekend before, a few days before, or a week before. You don't really know, and so you wanna be prepared financially to book a flight if you need to book a hotel, to book accommodations. You wanna have your suit ready to go. You're gonna wanna be prepared not only mentally for your interview, but you wanna be prepared financially as well, because that will alleviate a lot of stress related to interview day. So those were my basic tips for preparing for an interview. And like I said, I'm gonna dive into this deep in next week's video. But now let's talk a little bit about how to compartmentalize during this time. Listen up. This is going to be a long year for you guys who are applying this cycle. There's a lot of waiting that comes with this territory. And on top of that, many of you are not going to be hearing back from schools. You guys are going to get rejections. It's part of the process. The best thing you can do is prepare to handle these things in the best and most productive way possible. The biggest thing that I learned during this time for me last year is that it's so important to invest my time in things that I love. There's a really great article that I read that resonated with me during this waiting time, and it's called Diversify Your Identity by Mark Manson. And the takeaway is this: as pre-PA students, or individuals in general, we place our entire identity, our self-worth, into succeeding in one aspect of life. And for pre-PA students, that of course comes with applying to PA school. All of our efforts, all of our hard work, everything we're doing is with that one focus, that one goal in mind. It's a motivating factor. It keeps us pushing forward. It keeps us working hard, and that's great. But you have to acknowledge that there are setbacks on this journey. There are a lot of people who will end up applying 2 years, 3 years in a row, and that's the hard reality. And you will get rejections, you will get waitlisted. And my best advice for how to cope with this is to realize your self-worth is not dependent on getting accepted to PA school. This article is all about placing our self-worth and our identity in other aspects of our lives. Yeah, so I recommend investing your time in things that really inspire you and that are not medically related as well, and just diversifying your identity. So for me, that involved working out and spending time with family. I got married during this time. I went to New Zealand and immersed myself in the culture there, and I had some incredible experiences, and it really put things into perspective for me. So while waiting is really difficult, there are things that you can do during this time that really help you appreciate other aspects and other facets of life and of your identity. I highly recommend exploring that further during this time. I'll link the article below. It really resonated with me, and I really encourage you guys to think about what you care about during this time and how you want to improve as an individual, because you have to think of the big picture. You know, we want to be PA students, yes, but ultimately we want to be really great future providers and be somebody who's a light to others and who positively impacts those around them and who supports others, because there will be friends of yours that are getting interviews and getting accepted to schools that you've applied to probably, and you have to be a supporting force in their lives too. We're all in this journey as individuals, but collectively we're going through similar things together, and you have to provide your support. In the meantime, invest in areas of life that you find exciting. So my last tip involves PA school forums. So I understand why people get immersed in these forums and check it all the time. I totally get it. You want to know what's going on. You want to know if you're missing out on something. You want to know if there are updates from the schools, all of that. But me personally, I looked at the forum from the previous application cycle. I wanted to get a sense of when the schools were going to be offering interview invitations, and then when they were gonna tell the students whether they got accepted or rejected. Aside from that, I did not look at these forums because it's so counterproductive. It doesn't add anything to your life. It's not gonna do anything but cause you stress and anxiety and cause you to compare yourself unnecessarily to others, and it will not provide you with relief. It will likely only provide you with more anxiety, and you have to acknowledge that the only person that you're competing with is yourself. Who are you today? Who are you going to be tomorrow? That's it. No one can compete with you if you're not competing with them. It really takes you in the wrong direction. For me, you know, speaking for myself, I recommend staying away from the forums. So that's just my 2 cents. But you guys can do what you'd like. That's just what worked for me and what I recommend more than anything. I've never heard anyone say that they were grateful that they went into the forums. That's just my perspective. So yeah, keep that in mind. All right, guys, so those are my tips. That's everything that I recommend doing right after you submit your CASPA application. A little bit about interview prep, a little bit about how to just compartmentalize and deal with the stress of this entire time. I know it's difficult, but you guys can do it. Congrats again for those of you who did apply, who have submitted your application, or who will be submitting your application in the upcoming weeks. I do want to say that I've started a personal statement editing service, so if you're having difficulty really putting your story into words, and digging deep and figuring out what your mission is, and you need help, I am really happy to help you guys with that. I've helped quite a few students already, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. And so if you need help with that, if you need help editing it or refining your story, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or you can email me, and I will be glad to provide you more details about the editing service that I have right now. And like I mentioned, my upcoming videos are going to be all about the interview process. So if you guys have any questions at all on how to prepare, which questions you're struggling with answering, let me know. comment below or you can DM me on Instagram. I'm here as a resource to you guys. So feel free to reach out and give me any recommendations as far as what videos you guys would like to see, anything you want me to really go into depth about. I would really love to help you guys out and provide you guys with that. With that said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did find it helpful, I make a video once a week, so feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.